Never shake a baby. What parents and caregivers need to know. Shaken baby syndrome is the tragic end of a chain of events. The chain usually begins with a parent or caregiver becoming tired, then frustrated with an infant or toddler's crying. It often ends with the child suffering a serious injury of the brain as a result of being forcefully shaken by the frustrated adult.
The injury of the brain is known as shaken baby syndrome. It happens when forceful shaking repeatedly squashes the brain against the skull. Children who survive often have permanent disabilities, such as paralysis, blindness, and seizures, and will never develop as a child should. Many will require special care for their lifetime. More than 1 in 5 will die. Statistics also show that men are more likely to shake a baby than are women.
A baby's crying should not lead to tragedy. You can protect your child by making sure that you and other caregivers know how to cope with your child's demands and that your caregivers are reliable. What you're about to see will offer practical ways for coping with the tiredness and frustration of caring for a baby. Never shake a baby. What parents and caregivers need to know.
They just cry. They just cry and cry and cry until you finally get them to sleep. It can take hours.
She was one of those who would scream from 9 till like 1 or 3 in the morning. And so we were getting really tired.
I get tired a lot. He's up 3-4 times a night, just wants his bottle or to be cuddled, so I can't get much sleep.
Taking care of a baby or toddler can be a mixture of frustration and joy.
Right here. Come on. Okay, Pete.
Jake, please leave Jillian alone so she can get to sleep.
Parenting is not always easy,
Jake, come on. I want you to wash your hands and get ready for lunch.
and new parents may feel overwhelmed, helpless, and even angry by the constant demands of a baby or young child.
Drake, what did I say? Get washed up, please.
You bring this baby home with all these expectations that everything's going to be, easy, and it just isn't.
Sometimes you can feel like you just can't stand anymore.
No!
When a parent becomes frustrated, it can become very dangerous because they may have impulses to act out their frustration and anger on the baby. And one of those impulses may be to shake the baby. It's dangerous to shake a baby because of how a baby's made. Babies have large heads relative to the rest of their bodies, and they have weak neck muscles. So that if a baby is shaken, the head moves back and forth, and it moves a great deal, more than it would in a child or in an adult. When the head moves back and forth rapidly, the brain moves inside the skull, and the movement of the brain can cause bleeding around the brain and damage to the brain itself. And that is what can cause the brain damage, which can be permanent, or the resulting death.
Babies cry for many reasons, and some cry more than others. Sometimes you have no idea why your baby is crying.
Oh, I would do everything. I would try feeding her. She didn't want that. I would change her. Didn't help. I would just go crazy sometimes.
You don't know where to begin to stop the crying, and you try all the things that come, as common sense, feeding them, changing them, burping them, and then they still cry, and it's just, it's terribly frustrating. You feel like your failure as a parent.
Some babies have colic and cry without stopping for long periods of time. Colic is a condition, it's not a disease, and usually babies grow out of it by 3 to 6 months. Ask your doctor about colic. A colicky baby can be very tiring and upsetting for you.
He recognizes when you sit down. I have him in my arms, and I usually bounce and chant whatever comes into my mind, and I chant and chant and chant, and there's a little baby, there's a baby boy, and all this kind of stuff, and walk around and chant. And the moment I sit down, he's not fooled. He says, no, you're sitting down. Get back up. So my back will be killing me and legs are killing me. And that's a really hard time because he tends to be fussy from 7 till 1.
Parents are human beings with a limited supply of energy and patience. And it's very normal to become impatient and to feel that you're just about out of energy when you're looking after a demanding baby, especially one who's crying a lot.
On one of our many visits to see the doctor, they looked at the baby, said the baby was fine, and we needed the talk. Basically, the message was, if you look at your baby and he's pink and breathing, you've checked that you fed him, burped him, changed him, nothing's sticking him, then babies are going to cry. And I think that was the message we needed to hear. That changed things for us significantly. And you do the best you can, but it doesn't mean you're a bad parent if your baby cries.
There are many parents who feel that because they cannot soothe their baby's crying, that they're a bad parent. And this is not true. They are not bad people, and they are not bad parents. Babies cry because babies cry, and it's their way of communicating. So parents should realize this and realize that some babies will cry no matter what you do.
Before you reach your limit, go through this checklist. Is the baby hungry? Is there a wet diaper or uncomfortable clothing? Take the baby's temperature to see if there's a fever. Does your baby need a cuddle? After you've checked these, there are a number of things that may help. Some babies are soothed by being placed safely in a swing.
The car helped. Yeah, he loves the car. We were very happy to find that out. We put him in the car seat. As long as the car's going, stop signs are bad. Pacifier, we did ask our doctor whether they approved, of him having pacifier, and she said yes. So we now have pacifiers around the house. We have several of them so that we always have one handy. And sometimes just wrapping him up tight in a receiving blanket and just rocking, cuddling him, that'll do it. To calm them down, I paced the floors. We walked in circles, one way, another way. I rock the baby a lot. We have a glider chair.
Sometimes sounds help babies relax. Try a vacuum cleaner.
To calm her down, I use the soother or play music, as I say, to her and dance with her and rock her.
With Jovine here, we've been having a lot of problems of her crying a lot at nighttime. So in talking to my in-laws, we've been discussing that, she cries a lot in the nighttime, and they've given me some different suggestions, cultural sort of beliefs of what to do with her in the evening. And one of them is to massage her with oil and give a really good massage, and then bathe her in the evening before settling her down for the night. And so we've been trying to do that, switching the bath time from the morning to the evening, and then massaging her with some oils, trying to sort of relax her and see if that'll help.
Try going outside for a walk. A walk may help the both of you.
It's a good idea to talk to other women because they're going through the same thing and they can understand what you're going through. And it's good to have adult conversation every now and then instead of dealing with the baby all the time.
Sometimes, no matter what you do, the baby won't stop crying. It's not always easy to stay calm.
That he was cranky from the moment he opened his eyes till the moment he went to bed, and that was just such a strain. I think I probably cried every day at some point, usually when he did, and I said, okay, let's wail together. And we would just both cry at the same time.
There were times where I was so frustrated that I felt like shaking the baby. I'd read you're not supposed to do that, and we found that and when you get to that sort of breaking point, the best thing to do was to hand it off to the other parent or my mom or whoever was here and just walk away and cool off a bit.
I have been frustrated with her, but I could never get to the point of hurting her. I've been really frustrated, but that's when I say, okay, she's a baby, it's not her fault. Put her down and leave the room.
Knowing that there's a limit to your patience and your energy, you need to have two kinds of plans. One for doing something when you realize that you've reached the edge and that you simply need relief quickly. So you call a friend, you call a member of family, you call a neighbor who's able to come quickly, someone you trust who understands you and can look after your baby properly in the meantime. If you know yourself well enough and you accept that you will have limited energy and limited patience, as you're feeling yourself losing your energy and your tolerance, then you place your baby safely in bed, you close the door, and you walk away and look after you for a while.
If you feel you can't cope with the crying much longer, ask someone you trust to look after your baby until you can. If you can't find someone you trust right away, put the baby safely in bed, close the door, and walk away for a while.
When I feel like I can't stand it anymore or I'm losing my patience, I take a break. I take 10 minutes to myself to collect my thoughts and maybe phone somebody, and I feel much better.
It is frustrating. I have to admit, on one occasion, that I threw the car seat, not with him in it, I better say, but that was the one thing, that was the only time I knew that I was in trouble. I was just so upset. It just went, this was one day, I mean, he literally was crazy from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. And it went on, and I threw this car seat across the room, and I went, oh, okay, it's time to call somebody. So I have a neighbor who lives downstairs who's a niece, and I called her and said, I need help. And I was in tears, and she just said, I'll be right there. And she took him away for 2 hours.
For a long period of time, I spent 2 hours awake in the middle of the night also because I couldn't go back to sleep, because I was too tired and because I knew he would wake up. And one time he woke up and he was wearing a blue baby bag, one where he had arms in it and his feet were in a zip-up bag. And I can remember picking him up by the baby bag, right about here. And I can remember the thought going through my mind, if I just swung him from side to side in the crib, I would bonk his head on either side of the crib, and that would probably shut him up for a little while, or at least relieve some of my stress. At which point I put him back in the bed, and I went back into my bedroom, and I said, Andrew, you better get up, or something serious is going to happen. And he promptly got up and dealt with Duncan.
If you are asked to look after a crying baby for a while, please help out as quickly as possible.
These parents knew they were in danger of harming their babies. They knew at the time they should not be taking care of their babies and called for help.
I get a lot of family support. Like, I get breaks. They say they take the baby for an hour or even an evening or so, so I can collect my nerves again, which is very helpful.
Getting help is okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent or that you don't love your baby.
Okay. If she starts to fuss, she's getting tired, so just put her down in her crib.
It does mean that you're wise enough to know that you're reaching your limit. If you do leave your baby in someone else's care, be it your partner, a babysitter, a grandparent, make sure you know and they know their limits, and that they understand how dangerous it is to shake a baby.
Oh, that's great. Thanks very much. I appreciate the break.
My boyfriend is a good father. He plays with my son, changes him, bathes him, everything. Except when times come when he starts to cry and he can't handle it. Well, first he'll try and calm him down himself. If he can't handle it, he'll give him to me because he doesn't want to hurt him or do anything bad to him.
I told my sister that if she was getting frustrated and felt like she wanted to shake the baby or anything like that, just put the baby down and go have time to yourself for a few minutes. And when you're calmed down, go and pick up the baby.
The best backup plan for a caregiver is the same backup plan as for parents in the first place. Caregivers need to know that they have permission to call for help if your baby is frustrating them in the same way that your baby has frustrated you. Babies should never be left with anyone who has violent reactions.
Males more often injure babies by shaking than do females. Fathers and boyfriends more often than mothers. Many babies are injured by caregivers. What is most important to remember? Always leave your child with someone you trust.
As parents, you want to do the best for your baby. Knowing what to do before the baby's crying gets to you and getting help for those times when you feel you can't cope are two of the best things you can do for yourself and for your baby.
Warning: shaking can permanently disable or kill a child. Never shake a baby.
Plan ahead for regular babysitting relief from family, friends, neighbors, and others who you trust.
If you feel you can't cope much longer with your baby's crying, ask for help right away from someone you trust.
If you feel that you just can't cope much longer with your baby's crying and can't reach someone you trust for help, put your baby safely in bed and walk away for a while.
Make sure that your caregivers know what to do if they begin to feel unable to cope with your baby's crying.